Hi, this is Charles Hoskinson broadcasting live from warm, sunny Colorado. Always warm, always sunny, sometimes Colorado. Today is Sunday, October 8th, 2023. And it is time for yet another one of the impromptu, always fun, always exciting surprise AMAs in the office today to do some work on the Constitution, amongst many, many other things. And I figured, I haven't done an AMA in a long time, not by not by choice. It's just been busy, a lot been going on. Things are happening, and it would be good to go and see what's going on with you guys, see what your questions are. It's a very, very loaded time in Cardano. There's lots going on. We had NFT XLV, we had Rare Evo. There's obviously a lot of workshops going on. We're right in the thick of things with Sancho Net. I think we're at version 8.5, and we're getting pretty close to full implementation of the SIP, meaning that from a feature perspective, things in the SIP you actually can do through the command line. It'll be a little while more, a few more releases before I think we get there. And then at that point, it's productization, meaning that it actually have to do integration and testing and QA and all those types of things. However, that means SanchoNet has fully realized and people can begin messing with it and playing with it and having a lot of fun with it. So we're kind of moving along and getting those things done. 2024 is really looking from an IO perspective to be the year of sidechains and Mithril. Those are the two big things I would love to see get done. From a research perspective and a thread, there's Ouroboros Laos and input endorsers. And we worked real hard last year to get some of the foundations of input endorsers, so the directionality of the research. And this year we've been kind of tightening the bolts and really figuring out exactly how we want to do it. And I think what will happen is once that's been completely set up, then well-typed or some firm like that will go into heavy modeling and analysis mode, and that'll be a concurrent thread that runs with all of the stuff required for the plumbing of sidechains. And boy, is there a lot of plumbing that needs to be put in for sidechains. And then, of course, there's the third thread that never stops. There's multiple threads. It's like we're weavers here. That third thread that never stops is improvements to Plutus and the development experience. We're starting to fall in love with Aiken a little bit. Hydra team actually prototyped some of the Hydra stuff with Aiken and did a cross comparison to Plutus script. And there's some good things there. It's a great ecosystem. It really shows you the power when the community comes together and comes up with a good idea. And, you have to be very pragmatic about these things. And then many other threads, threads like how to get Mithril into the node itself, improvements to the network stack. Peer-to-peer is already here. People are using it. And obviously that rollout comes over time. It's fully realized with Genesis. Genesis is already underway. There's a fixed cost contract out to Tweak about it. So people are chipping away at things. And hopefully the first half of next year, we'll see that if they keep the deadlines. So, just a lot of stuff, and very happy with the progress of things. It's new development paradigm, can't be everything everybody, and completely new network. No one's ever seen these types of things before, yet the assumptions we made in the lab are coming true in reality. For example, many of you saw the tweet about Mithril 20-minute bootstrap time for a full node. 20 minutes. And this is Mithril version 1. Mithril version 2 is almost done. Leo Raisin from Boston University came over to Edinburgh for a semester and worked with our guys. He did the compact certificate paper with Algorand, really great top-notch researcher. So he came on over, worked with our guys, and took a lot of great ideas in that ecosystem and brought them over and merged them with ideas in ours. It was a nice bridge between those two. So I think we're getting down to the bedrock about what can be achieved with certificates like that. A lot of work on Pluto Eris as well. Super excited about the direction of that. So it's hard to fire on 5-6 different threads of research at the same time, but I'm pretty impressed with how the team's been approaching that. And still a few more announcements for the end of the year. When you look at Minotaur and when you look at side chains and these things, I think people would be very, very happy about that. Plus, I guess I have a Twitter space tomorrow with Iran on midnight. And I think people will be very happy about midnight as well. On the commercial side, On our side, IO, we have ventures like RealFi Co. That's John O'Connor's company. He was director of African operations for a long time, and he did deals like the Ethiopia MOE deal, which, by the way, is still going on. It's still a thing. I love people say it's been canceled or it's a lie. It's like that's still a thing, and it kept and survived through two separate ministers of education and a war and other things like that. And there's actually a whole team that works on it. They're part of our PI process and they integrate quite well with the Prism team. We deployed it on the old Prism 1.4, and when the Prism framework upgrades a little bit, a later version of 2.x will be the rollover to that. Remains to be seen how to scale that because there's a lot of problems in many different dimensions on how one would scale that across the entire economy, and if it's even a wise idea to do that. But it's still underway. So John led that effort. He led the effort with many different African jurisdictions, which were extremely crypto curious in 2021 when Bitcoin was $68,000 and not so much after FTX. That whole well dried up. However, the people of Africa never lost their passion. In Nigeria, more than 20% of people own or know somebody who owns a cryptocurrency. That's a country of 200 million people. Think about that, according to data from some big consultancy like Gartner or McKinsey or something like that. You'll have to find that source, but it's very vibrant. And you'll see it anecdotally when you see the events in Nigeria, like a lot of people show up. And it's actually the same in Kenya and many other places. And so RealFi Co is based in Kenya. John's been putting it together, and that's where a lot of the ideas we've had about microfinance and remittances are coming together. Dinal Patel, the former chief product officer of Input Outputs, now working over at RealFi Co with John. They're both founding and building up that company alongside a lot of people that were responsible for these pilot projects that we did. And the rubber meets the road where you actually have direct consumer adoption. And there's a lot of cool things there. It's there's ebbs and flows into how much you can get done at any given time. And actually, technology tends to be the least limiting factor, tends to be the macro cycle. So corporate procurement goes to hell when a recession happens for new technologies. And when the US government's trying to kill that technology, it doubly so. So you actually have to pivot from a B2B or B2G strategy to a B2C strategy and go direct to the consumer, because there's always a demand signal if there's a good product. And then once you have a large customer base, you can work your way back to B2B and B2G, just how that works. But I'm pretty comfortable, happy with it. Prism's looking good too. We're on quarterly release cycles with the PI system that they have and backfilling a lot of little things here and there. Definitely going to open core it. And my hope is that it can become a Hyperledger project, be right up there with Indy and the rest of the gang. There's a lot to do, though. And it's under great leadership under David Harding. He's a wonderful CEO, and he's a real smart guy, been in the identity world for a long time. Lace is looking great, too. I'm very happy with Lace, and there's lots of cool announcements and things. And it's one product that I do get involved in from time to time personally with Mike Ward and Tyan and the product team there, because I like the fact that we have a monthly release cadence, and I like the fact that we can really start getting to unfinished business. Like right now, we have multi-delegation. We got to get delegation portfolios in, but also I'd like to see hardware multi-sig, a paper wallet generator, just YubiKey integration, just tons of little things. And so we're going to really master that. And it's nice because it allowed us to have great conversations about SIP 30, SIP 95. Great conversations about how one would build a DApp store. And we had some phenomenal ideas there that will work their way through. But it makes us care a lot more because we're on the receiving end of the technology, just like Hydra makes us care a lot about the DApp side of things, because we have to use the tools we build to implement Hydra. And if they don't work as well as we'd hope, then we're like, we need to make some improvements there. So overall, I kind of enjoy the pace of that. And I'm an aggressive guy, so I'll push harder to speed it up a bit. But I do want Lace to be the standard for the industry, not just for Cardano, but for the industry on a good wallet experience that is safe and effective with premium features and freemium features and these types of things. And so 2024 is going to be a good year for that. And it's a good team. And I really admire them for their ability to kind of push through and get something launched. It's always scary when you launch a product. It's not scary Gary, but scary when you launch a product and actually get it in the market, have customers have feedback, and they yell at you and say, "Hey, you're not as smart as you think you are." It's like, yeah, that's true. There are a lot of things on social media right now. There's a groundswell of some exceedingly loud but very small minority of people in the Cardano community who, of course, whenever they don't like the way things go, they just go and say things like people dumped or, IO controls the network unilaterally or, a whole bunch of these types of things. And, that's on them. There's only so much time and oxygen in life. And at some point, you just got to throw in the towel and just let them burn themselves out and flame out. In general, I blame the times and I blame social media for our inability to have conversations with each other. You see, in any healthy rivalry or disagreement, there's always a little jabbing that occurs. Yeah. So if you like football and a person's a Broncos fan, we have a legendary rivalry with the Oakland Raiders and the Kansas City Chiefs and the San Diego Chargers. Why? Because we're all in the same division and we all fight each other multiple times per year. And sometimes the Broncos win, sometimes they don't. Now, if you're a Kansas City fan and, I'm a Broncos fan, we always have a little fun jabbing each other every Sunday when those games come in. Well, that doesn't mean we hate each other, and that doesn't mean we don't actually work together and communicate with each other. And most of the things that reasonable people do through Twitter and social media when they say, Ethereum's this or Cardano's this or Solana's this, like the Nintendo cartridge with Solana, for example. It's in that lens, and the point of it is just to kind of drum up a little of those feelings. But you'll notice something that we're all staying in the same league. We're all cryptocurrencies. We all work together. We all have the same common foes, CBDCs and central banks and totalitarian regimes. The delta between the aspirations of your average Ethereum person who really believes in Ethereum and the average Cardano person who really believes in Cardano is not very big. You're both using public key cryptography, both using wallets, you're both using a cryptocurrency, which makes you a very small minority of the world population at the moment. Yet, unfortunately, there is this uncanny valley where even though people are 98% alike and aligned, that 2% delta actually ends up creating more tribalism than people imagine. And this is amplified by social media, where people think it's okay to say things like people are evil, people are dishonest, people lack integrity. And it's also okay to just lie and omit huge amounts of history. For example, the Genesis keys, it's no thing that's hidden. It's like all there. 3 entities is 322, IOG, Emergo, and CF. And there's an entire off-chain governance structure and on-chain implicit governance structure about how those are used. For example, we don't do hard forks until 70% of the SPOs upgrade. That precedent hasn't been violated, and it's there. And there's all this stuff that happens behind the scenes off chain to basically keep those keys secure, and they're used in very deliberate and considered way with a lot of latency. It takes months to coordinate even minor upgrades at the moment. Now, those keys are hard coded into the Cardano Genesis block and have been for a long time. When are they going to be replaced? Well, why do you think we've been talking about SIP 1694 since 2021? This concept of let's upgrade the governance stack of Cardano. And even before there was a SIP 1694, there were discussions about elements and fundamental criteria that would have to go in. The Genesis keys, for example, deprecate them, and that concept replaced with a notion of constitutional committee. Go from static and hard-coded to dynamic and voted on with a quorum that can be expanded. It's an M of N with fixed terms. And then also allow plutuscripts to be used in it. So you can have multiple parties control one of those keys as opposed to a single organization, for example. and all kinds of bespoke governance structures, and also beholden them to an on-chain constitution for a variety of guardrails that one would want to put in the system, and then go from a unicameral to a tricameral model, adding DREPs and stake pool operators formally into the governance process. Well, this is not a new concept. We've been talking about it this year, more than 50 workshops. And SanchoNet, the entire reason of its existence is for that. And every single person on the development side of Cardano is aligned, trying very hard to test and understand and build infrastructure towards that end, up to and including community projects that are trying to figure out how do we make a great experience for DREPs or for accountability and audit and oversight. What will voting look like in practice? How do those results get broadcast? What did we learn from the Catalyst experiment? What did we learn from Polkadot's OpenGov or Tezos's four-stage governance process? These types of things. So it's insanely disingenuous then to go ahead and say the goal of this entire endeavor is to preserve and protect the very thing the endeavor is trying to replace and remove. Why would you do it? Why would you go and say these things when all the evidence is in that direction? Millions, actually tens of millions of dollars at this point of development effort and scientific effort have been spent, and the entire desire is to do that. I don't know. I don't know why people do that. I don't know why they feel emboldened for these types of things, but they do. And that's just the nature of discourse today on the internet. And generative AI is only going to make it worse because people will just make stuff up and then use AI to reinforce that. And then people just choose to believe what they want to believe. We live in a world today where truth is not an objective, absolute thing. People basically invent a fantasy and then they ignore any evidence that would dissuade them from that fantasy. And they double down on anything that confirms it. And then they build a group around it. And they run through and they just absolutely have to have that group every day, reinforce it. And there's a purity test. Anybody who presents a differing idea from it gets pushed out. I see all these people say, oh, well, Charles called me a liar. Welcome to the club. Well, yeah, if you lie, I call you a liar. It's just that's just what it is. It's objectively wrong. And they manipulate the narrative to try to fit into a fold where, well, of course he did that. And they then say it's a cult and all these people are falling because they don't have any free will. Apparently everybody listening who likes me, agrees with me, you're being manipulated. I guess, according to these people, you're all members of this. And I say, all right, well, my whole goal is to put the whole network in as many people's hands as possible and decentralize things. And we even get academic institutions to physically measure the level of decentralization, because for 10 plus years, our entire industry has been claiming decentralization, but nobody bothered to put money, time, and effort into measuring it objectively. Basic concept. Even governments didn't do this when they're supposed to, and they're trying to create legislation, regulation based upon it. So we spent millions of dollars and put our money where our mouth was and founded a lab at University of Edinburgh specifically to this end that has a dedicated professor and graduate students and engineers, and it doesn't work for Cardano. It's going to start at Bitcoin and work its way down the list and measure the amount of decentralization. So there's an objective metric that nobody can argue with that basically talks about where the network is centralized and where it's decentralized. Why would a person whose objective and goal is to centralize everything and preserve and protect the cult of personality want to have an entity he can't control basically give him a report card on whether he achieved that or not? Why? Why would we go through the peer review process? And when they can't explain the papers, what they do is they attack the very peer review process. They either say it's illegitimate because they're not in journals, not understanding computer science. The peer review process is done with conferences. Talk to any fucking computer scientist about it. Would take 5 minutes. Go down and send them an email. Ask them. Don't take my word for it. Ask them. Why do they show up for these conferences? Why do people have to referee at a conference? You don't do this in physics. You do it in computer science. But no, the process must be wrong because there's no reasonable explanation of how we take the time to write over a 7-year period, 200 papers. Is that fucking marketing? What marketing value do I get out of those papers? Can anybody read them? Can anybody understand them? We predicted all the problems Ethereum was going to run into with Casper years ago. Nobody in the media looked at it, cared about it, wrote about it. Why? Because they couldn't understand the paper. So that's certainly not marketing. And if these papers were bad papers, then why are they getting accepted at major peer review checkpoints? Why are people getting poached? Why do people get tenure? Why do people get promoted in academia? Is it just the entire space is crooked and corrupt, and how you get promoted in computer science land is completely divorced from the impact of your research that you do? Is your conspiracy so strong that all of computer science now has to be aligned to be co-opted by the evil Charles Hoskinson? But it's a cult, according to them. Why? Because it disagrees with their worldview. And that's okay now. Just is. And it's okay in a broader sense, because why should we expect any different? Look at politics today. Look at the politicians today. Look at medicine today. Look at education today. Why should crypto be any different? Can't get angry about these things. We just have to accept that they are what they are and move forward. And the thing is, the more successful you become and the more you accomplish in life, the more you push forward in life, the more enemies you produce and the more disagreements you produce and the more anger and vitriol you produce. And then at some point, you no longer are human. You're something else. You're some straw man that people have put up, or idol that people have put up to deify or to demonize and attack. And you can never have a conversation anymore. And maybe that's where we're at. But that's okay, because we predicted that too. That's why SIP 1694 exists. That's why Intersect exists. That's why I keep pushing for members-based organizations and decentralization. It's real easy to attack one guy. It's a lot harder to attack a movement. So that's what we're doing as an ecosystem. That's what Satoshi did. He had the foresight to leave before that happened. And it's what Vitalik is enduring right now with his own community. It's what every single cryptocurrency community is enduring with people that give it a little bit of a push to get started, is that cult of destruction. And that's the nature of things. And that's why blockchains are necessary. Thinking a lot these days about what's required to write a constitution and what's required to leave a legacy of good ideas that ought to be preserved and protected. The point of blockchain technology, the point of the industry as a whole, is to acknowledge that humans are flawed and they'll always let you down, no matter who they are, myself included. No one is perfect in everything, and anyone who asserts that is certainly not perfect. So the point is that you have to introduce systems that don't lie, systems that don't have problems, systems that objectively enforce a reality upon people, even if that constructed reality is not the same as actual reality. The fact that we all play the same game and are beholden to the same rules is what makes the game fun, interesting, and useful. There's no laws of physics behind football having a touchdown, 7 points, 6 points, and plus, you get your point after. There's no laws of physics about that. Okay, but they just decided, the whole league could get together and change to say a touchdown's 10 points instead of 6 points. But they don't. Why? Because all those records, the people that came before, and the social dynamics of that change would be dramatic. All right, well, now it's 7, point after 6. Now I'm doubting myself. It's 6 with the after point. Yeah, because you can do the 2-point conversion as well to get to 8. Yeah, so it's 6 and 1. It's too early. Anyway, there's no laws of physics behind that. But social, it's a constructed reality, and it's a strong constructed reality. Blockchain takes this concept of these constructed realities and puts them on steroids, makes them super strong, grows them up, and can use that for the basis of consent, truth, money, and gives you objective metrics that you can look at about how much consent there is, how much security there is behind that constructed reality that exists. And that's a very powerful thing because we've lost the ability in this post-truth world to regulate and moderate ourselves. Look at Elon Musk. He's the greatest example of an unhinged person because somewhere along the line, I think he legitimately decided that the world is made up and we're all living in a simulation. So what he's doing is just maximizing the hilarity of things. No normal person would spend $45 billion to buy a company that has brand equity that's a decade old with 300 million people liking it, and then just change the name to X and then make sex jokes about it. But he does because it's funny to him. And if you believe the world's a simulation, it makes no difference overall whether something is built to last or it's built just to humor you, because it's a simulation. It can change at any given moment. Every one of your hopes, your dreams, your aspirations, your religious faith, your whole family is just a video game. It was all made up. So there you go. And he's just going to keep doing crazy and interesting things and pushing the bounds of things. Have 12 kids, all this stuff. He's unhinged. He's not connected to anything. There's no rules for a person like that. You can sue him. You can write tell-all books about him. You can do all kinds of horrible things. Doesn't impact him. Still just as rich. And so you need something to ground yourself and connect to, or else everybody just starts floating away in the clouds. And I'd like to believe that blockchains are like that. They allow you to connect to something that doesn't have a agenda. It doesn't care if you're from Senegal or from Colorado or from Hawaii or from Russia. It doesn't care about geopolitics. It doesn't care if it's good for you or it's bad for you. Just like the laws of physics, gravity doesn't really care who you are. It doesn't really care where you're from. You can build great things when you have that grounding, and you can build institutions that actually last a long time from that grounding. Otherwise, they float away. They're useless. One of the reasons why crypto exists is because we removed from the fiction of money the grounding. Used to be the gold standard, used to be commodity monies in the history of money. Somewhere along the way, a bunch of very smart economists decided arbitrarily that it'd be better if we unhooked money from reality, from something that actually has scarcity behind it. The minute they did that, lo and behold, we now have inflation. It's turning into hyperinflation. My grandfather was a lineman when he started. He got out of the Marine Corps, served 1948 to 1952. And he got his first job out was a lineman. And he, on that salary, was able to have 7 kids. His wife stayed at home and buy a home and 2 cars. You now have husband and wife, college educated, high paying tech jobs, can barely afford to buy a home and can't afford to have a single kid and make a car payment. Is it because evil corporations are just taking all the money from you? No. It's because the thing we're paying you with back in 1952 was connected to something real. And the thing we pay you with in 2023 is not. And because of that, a bunch of the powerful people got together with the government. They rigged the game, and they get to use that remaining value first, and you get the table scraps. It's a rigged game. So cryptocurrency comes along and says, well, let's create a digital scarcity and ground you in something. Okay. And lo and behold, we're the bad guys. Lo and behold, the US government has to take us down. Why? Because they can't allow an industry like this to grow and flourish, because in contrast, people will start waking up and understanding how worthless money really is and how much pain and suffering that they're going through for the table scraps that they're being given. That's the power of grounding things in reality. Imagine if we did that with elections. Imagine if we did that with property rights. Imagine if we did that with contracts, intellectual property, your data, the oil of the 21st century. That's where the world will go. So every tool in the book is going to be used. Every technique is going to be used, and people will fight things that are in their own best interest because they just don't understand. And they're so in the matrix and so propagandized and so turned into stuff that makes it really hard for them to see the forest from the trees. So you just got to move forward and just got to keep chipping away at it. That's what we do. I've been here for 10 years. 10 years. It's a long time. Could have been a doctor in that time period. Probably would have been happier practicing with my brother and dad. But it wouldn't have been as meaningful or interesting, I'll tell you that. And I'll be here for longer. I'm not going anywhere. You know, you change your techniques and you change your style, and you have to know when to be in the room, when not to be in the room. But the mission is always there. And we're doing it together. We'll get this done, decentralized governance. And next year, we're not going to be having these types of arguments and debates. We're going to be having a much more meaningful and significant, which is what is the budget of Cardano? The hidden truth of 1694 is immediately after ratification and adoption, the very first thing people are going to want to do is start spending the treasury. And that needs to be done in a structured way. And how every government does it, that's worth its salt as a budget. You get a pie graph and you have to start allocating the different things. If you care a lot about brand perception, marketing, and adoption, well, do you 20% of the annual budget care? Do you 15% of the annual budget care? Do you 25%? What would you fire or give up for that? We can't do that anymore in the United States. Very easy to fix our budget there. 5% across the board cut every year till the budget balances. That's what corporations do. Notice they can't give anything up anymore because that's how politics works. So how do we be better and not fall into the same trap? That's the fight for 2024. And that's the fight we invite by embracing decentralized governance. But the payoff is desperately needed funding gets in the hands of institutions, people, and projects, thousands of which across the world, to grow and evolve Cardano and push adoption. So we'll do it. We'll get it done. But that's a much bigger, more interesting fight than what happens over Twitter these days, especially in a post-truth world. Okay.